soul friends, welcome back to my channel Folklore. So today I'm going to tell you a little story from some British folklore, and the story today is about a witch, a white witch from Britain, England, and she was called Mother Ludlam. She was known for living in a cave that was in Frensham, and this was a village in Surrey, England. This story dates back to the 16th century and it is still a well-known story, at least in the area. But she was a generous, a kind witch, a white witch in fact, and people would go to this cave to ask the witch to grant them wishes of anything they might need. But there was one clause to her spells, and that was, yes, she will grant you what you need, but you must return it within 2 days. So make the most of what you need for those 2 days, but make sure you return it. If this spell was able to grant you your wish, everyone of course would respect that they need to return it, because they're not going to risk a hex, risk a curse. Anyone with sense would sort of stick to the witch's wishes here. But there was one day when somebody, an unknown man, he didn't follow this rule. He asked the witch for a cauldron. He wanted her cauldron in fact, and although maybe she wasn't so keen to give up her own personal cauldron, she knew she would be getting it back in 2 days, so she complied and she granted this man her cauldron, as long as of course he returns it back in 2 days time. As you may have guessed it, this man didn't return the cauldron, and this angered Mother Ludlam. She couldn't believe that he would disrespect her and the spell and refuse to return her cauldron. So she set out in a rage to claim back her cauldron from this man, and the tale says that he was so scared of this witch on his tail that he ran to the nearest church, which is the Virgin Mary Church of Frensham, and that's where he hid out until he died, and that is where the cauldron still remains today. So if you want to go and see the White Witch Mother Ludlam's cauldron, you can still apparently go to this church and see the cauldron itself. And historians have said that this cauldron could date back to the 12th century, so it's a very cool old cauldron. Definitely, if you're in the area, something worth checking out. But there's a few different versions of this story, so there's 2 more versions of this story that I'm going to share with you. The next version is very interesting. Again, a man comes to visit Mother Ludlam and asks to use her cauldron, but as this man was turning to leave with the cauldron, she noticed that this man had hooves for feet. And that's when she instantly realised that this was no ordinary man. In fact, this was the devil. And she didn't want to lend her cauldron to the devil because she's a white witch. So she asked the devil to drop her cauldron and leave. But of course, he didn't. He ran away with the cauldron. As he ran away, he jumped huge leaps, so it was very difficult for this little witch to catch him up. Every time that his hooves landed down from each leap, this created a hill, so there was all these hills now surrounding her cave, and these are now known as the Devil's Jumpers. These hills, they're still called the Devil's Jumpers because of this story, because a lot would believe in this tale and this folklore that the devil created these as he was running away from the White Witch. But when he got to the last hill that he jumped on, he dropped the cauldron, and by that time the witch had caught him up and she snatched the cauldron back to keep this cauldron safe from the devil. Mother Ludloom decided to retire the cauldron, which was a very powerful magical cauldron, to this local church, the Mother Mary Church, where she knew it would be safe from the devil's grasps. So that again is where the cauldron still is today. So the last story about this cauldron swaps out Mother Ludloom, the White Witch, for fairy folk. So this man who was seeking a cauldron apparently went to the top of the Devil Jumper's hills, and he sought for the fairies to grant him this cauldron, and again with the promise to return it. When he didn't return the cauldron to the fairy folk, they decided to cast a spell on him, or a curse on him in fact. Wherever he went, the cauldron would follow him. This began to really freak this guy out. He didn't want the cauldron to follow him everywhere, and when he noticed everywhere he went this cauldron was following him, that there must be some kind of curse here, and he started to doubt the powers of that cauldron and worry if it could turn on him and if his life was in fact in risk. So he became very scared of this. Eventually, after days of being followed everywhere he went by this cauldron, he decided to run to the local church, Virgin Mary's Church, and hide out. But as soon as he got to the church, when the doors opened, the cauldron was there already waiting for him. This spooked him out so much. In the safe place of the church, the holy church, where he thought he would be safe from this curse, here that cauldron was waiting for him. And this scared him so much that apparently he died on the spot of fright, scared to death, petrified, dead. And again, the cauldron remained at that church and is still at that church today. So lots of different stories surrounding this cauldron, all of them very interesting and really fun for me to just do a little research and find out about this story. Let me know your thoughts on this. Have you heard about this before? But otherwise, it's just interesting. The reason that I wanted to share this particular story was because it was all based around this magical cauldron, and I actually finally got myself an upgrade in my cauldron. I only had a very teeny tiny cauldron, and for Christmas I was gifted this lovely, much more usable size for me, not too big and bulky, but it's very heavy and it's going to be brilliant for my spell work. So yeah, in celebration of my cauldron, I hope you enjoyed this story. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye.